systems. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm open to a little human design if it comes up and we feel complete, just
Yeah.
because I do love it, but I don't
Yeah.
whatever way you feel you wanna take it to, I'm open. So,
Yeah. I've been
yeah.
thinking that usually when I like start working with clients, at least if they're going to be working with me, I want to do like a full astrology, a full human design, and then like a full gene keys session to kind of send people on their way. And so I think planning to mostly talk astrology today, and then
Okay.
if we run out of steam, then we can kind of jump into some human design stuff there. So
Sure.
I think ideal, and I will. I guess first of all, just kind of, are there any questions that you want to explore through your astrology? Are there any kind of intentions, things coming up in your life that you might want some more clarity on at this time at all?
Um, yeah, definitely, I mean, there's a lot of things that feel good, but I think more clarity on and I'm just checking in here, so I close my eyes to do that a lot. Um,
Mm,
I think clarity on which direction to maybe take the coaching business.
mm,
I'm having a I mean, and I do trust the flow, but and then clarity on the relationship that I'm in, perhaps.
mm.
Um,
Yeah,
but also I'm really just open to whatever is gonna come up organically as well, if that makes sense.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we can touch on like a few of those things here today. So,
Yeah.
I guess I usually like to start with asking people like what has resonated with you in your astrology in the past? What do you know about your astrological chart slash sun sign? Like
Yeah.
what does it mean to you?
So I have a friend who's astrologer from Santa Fe, and she did like a chart, but also like a book. She does these like really cool books. So I've had that done. I guess the chart, I have some lay person's knowledge about it, and I'm definitely love it.
Mm,
Um, so, I understand about the sun. The sun sign is kind of your home sign. The rising sign is the sign that you tend to, up until a certain point anyway, maybe present to the outside world,
mm,
not necessarily at the core of who you are, but who you like to present.
mm,
And that you're I'm losing
mm,
language all of a sudden. What is it?
mm,
Rising moon sign. Oh yeah, the moon sign is sort of what your internal landscape is, your emotions. And then I know my north and south node.
mm,
South, I have an understanding of where we've been maybe karmically, what we're really comfortable with.
mm,
But the north node is kind of what direction we're walking in this lifetime and what lessons we need to learn to be more balanced.
mm,
So, and actually, that's a huge one for me as far as something that I feel like my south node is in Aries and my north node is in Libra.
mm,
Um, and that is a really strong, I feel that to be true for me. Like I'm very comfortable, like a lot of people being very assertive, very vocal, very aggressive, and less comfortable being, balancing things out or pausing or being hesitant, listening to both sides, just kind of being I guess my work is, in relationship because I'm so comfortable being alone. And I think that's where the issues with my partner come in
mm,
is prior to this is the first long-term relationship I've been in. Well, what I would consider long-term, we've been together for 10 years before that. Um, I was just more comfortable being that Aries, like alone, independent. I think a little bit of that comes from trauma, but I think truly being the South Node from Aries, I'm just so comfortable and being a manifester, like doing things at my own speed and not having to check in
mm,
and just going, just going. And so I think my lessons have to do with like slowing down and considering the balance of the Libra and what's the other side of this, both for myself, like in my own body and brain, like what's the other side of this thinking, and also with other people. Um,
mm.
I'm talking a lot, but I do have some understanding of it,
Yeah.
but I also feel like it's not. in depth to which I know like you have knowledge or astrologers have knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, as a manifester, you're supposed to talk, so don't worry about that. That's what you're supposed to do. I'll be giving you a lot of space to talk today because it can be hard for manifestors to sit and listen for too long. So
Right.
just know that
Right.
that's okay. I want to invite that. That's a part of this, and don't feel any shame or guilt about that because it's who you are. It's what you're designed to be.
Yeah.
You are designed to be. So yeah, that all really resonates, and it gives me some ideas for kind of how we can work with this today and what will make sense for us to talk about. So I'm going to
Okay.
share my screen with you now so we can just take a
Okay.
look at your chart. So,
Cool. And Andy, I just have a question for knowledge with my clients.
sure.
I'm assuming you're looking up before each session, you're putting a little bit of time into like creating the chart
Yep.
and kind of just holding space for that person's chart before the session,
Yeah, usually,
right?
yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
depends how much I prepare. Usually I just let the chart talk to me, honestly.
Okay.
I get the chart up, I get everything up, and what people will want to bring out of that. I'll make notes and I'll kind of give an idea of where I want to go with things
Sure.
to have that kind of stuff. But not always. It's really just about the chart and the person and connecting and figuring out what they need at that time through their chart
Cool.
is I think my biggest thing. I don't have like, like pages of notes that I'm writing about this stuff and like that kind of thing. Some
Right.
astrologers do that. And that's not necessarily my approach. So,
Okay.
um,
Cool.
but so I think we got to talk about a couple things here first. So I always start with the sun sign. The sun sign is at the center of who we are, right? Just like our solar system, everything revolves around the sun. Everything revolves around the sun in our chart as well. So while it does not tell the whole story, everything gets expressed through our sun sign. So it is very much our journey is through our sun sign, and really our life's work unfolds through our sun sign.
Mm,
Our basic personality, ego, is associated with our sun sign. Our limited self identity. So, sun in Taurus. Um, what does that meant for you?
So I feel like that I know that that's a fixed earth sign. And I know that it's ruled by the planet Venus. So typically for me, that's meant I know what it means for Taurus in general, but I think for me, it's meant in my life being super stubborn, but like that it's served me to be stubborn for my dreams and for my goals.
Mhm.
Um, but it also um it kind of pairs in my mind along with this rigidity of also being kind of the Aries warrior self node where I just kind of and I understand this about myself and look for the balance. Um, I think Scorpio is a balance for me because it's water across the chart. But
Mhm.
anyway, for me, it's just meant I love environments and I do love material and pleasure.
Mhm.
But what's interesting is that the first part of my life, I mean, I'm older now, I'm 43, but in my 20s, I really rebelled against stability and structure, which is interesting because that's the sign that I am, but I rebelled against that in society, things that are super backwards and didn't work. So it
Mhm.
was almost like I was rebelling against my own nature instead of letting it work for me. And I think we talked about this last time how now I've embraced like the freedom and structure
Yeah.
um, and in the material world, but how to like use that in a way that serves others and serves myself rather
Mhm.
than kind of working against me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a really beautiful way of looking at it. And I think the most helpful way of understanding Taurus is in comparison to the sign before it. So Aries is the first sign in the zodiac, right? Aries it has places to go. It is the first sign. All 12 signs. It's like, yo, I gotta run. I don't have time for any of you. I can't wait around for you. I gotta go. right? It's the ram, right? The ram can't even bother to go around the fence. It goes through the fence with its horns, right? So like it's impatient. And then
Oh
Taurus
my God. Yeah.
Taurus comes in and say, whoa, 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 let's slow things down. There's no rush. Have you seen these leaves on the trees? Have you seen this river down here? Like, have you tasted this fruit? You know,
Yes.
we've taken our time to really give each step in the process the respect
Mm.
it deserves.
And it's so funny because my partner is an Aries, and that's a lot of our tension
Mhm,
is the impatience versus the pause.
mhm.
So
Absolutely.
I'm, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
that's
I'm laughing.
the best way to understand Taurus is through contextualizing it through Aries. Like whereas like Aries has everyone's like just slow down. There's no rush really here. Taurus loves to just like bask in the like the moment and like really take its time before it moves on to the next step. There's certain criteria that need to be met in order for it to feel comfortable moving on to that next step. Taurus is a journey of self worth.
Mm.
Taurus is very much, can look to the outside material realms for its own self satisfaction at times. So, um, it can really easily get caught up in food, in like what people think of it, and like how that creates this like self worth feedback loop between the people around it. So the journey for Taurus is really to call upon this feeling of self worth from within itself and know that it can only really know lasting self worth from within. And if it's consistently looking outside of itself to validate its own self worth, it will just perpetuate more of that cycle.
Mm.
That's really the journey uh, for Taurus. It's a Venus ruled sign. You said it. So it's very sensual in nature.
Hmm.
It does appreciate relationships in that way. And really, there's a certain level of like fairness that is important to Taurus as well. Um, and then, I think where I would go from there is the moon sign. So we've got your moon in Capricorn. So two earth signs here, very grounded energy. Um, Whereas, Taurus is the first of the earth signs. Capricorn is the last earth sign. And so what we see with Capricorn is more of a reputational emphasis. So Capricorn is the sea goat, not just the mountain goat. A lot of times people just think of Capricorn as the mountain goat. And in traditional astrological mythology, it's actually the sea goat. It has like a mermaid's tail on this goat actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I've
And
never heard that. That's so cool.
yeah, and what it alludes to is actually Capricorn's watery foundation. Because truly Capricorn, it's a mountain climber, right? It's that mountain goat that just wants to climb the mountain, climb the mountain, climb the mountain, doesn't necessarily care who it steps on, what it affects along the way, just needs to climb that mountain, build its reputation, build its career. It's the archetype of the father as well.
Mm.
Be very emotionally repressive, Capricorn, especially when we consider the opposite for Capricorn is Cancer. Cancer is this very emotionally vulnerable, sensitive sign, the mother archetype. And then
Mm.
father archetype is much more emotionally repressive, stuffing things away. What the um, the shadow side of Capricorn fails to see is that the foundation of the mountain that it's climbing actually goes deep below the water.
Mm.
It's ice.
Hmm.
And in order for it to have the strong foundation that Capricorn craves and is so good at building, it needs to tend to its vulnerability. Um, Capricorn oftentimes will say, I will be vulnerable when I've reached a certain status. Once I get high enough on the mountain, then people can see the weaknesses. Then people can see the shadows. Then people can, they make all these sorts of stories up for why they can't be vulnerable. Capricorn doesn't like to talk about its feelings very much. It's a very emotionally conservative sign, and that's okay. Capricorn doesn't necessarily need to talk about its feelings, and actually being told that it is not necessary to talk about its feelings is actually really freeing for Capricorn. Um, as long as it's not repressing those feelings. There's a fine line between like the Cancerian spewing emotions on people and also like that's not right for Capricorn. It's not. And so there is, as long as it's not repressing them and as long as it can live with them, sit with them, um, there's that can be enough for a Capricorn. Um, and it's your moon sign. So the moon is not necessarily at home in Capricorn. The moon is the ruler of Cancer. And so this is our
Mm.
emotional nature. And again, for our emotional nature to be in this emotionally repressive sign can create quite the tension. Um, and this often manifests in like emotional conservatism, taking your time, opening up to people. People kind of need to meet. Okay, I can open up to this person when they have met these criteria. There's like a little almost like mental checklist that Moon and Capricorn has, where it's like, okay, once you get to this point, then I can like show you this part of myself. When it enters into relationships, it likes to enter into them very gradually. This isn't the kind of person who dives right in and is like, we're planning trips within the first month. It's more comfortable for Moon and Capricorn to take its time. It's more sustainable. That's a big key.
So I have a question for you, and I don't know if you'll be able to answer it, but what I'm curious about is that I've always wondered because it does not describe my emotional nature hardly at all, at least currently, if ever, maybe when I was really young.
Mm-hmm.
But I think through intentional conditioning on my part and maybe self work, I'm really comfortable with emotions
Mm-hmm.
and don't like I'm the opposite of like needing to take too much time for that stuff. So I guess I'm just wondering if just in glancing at my chart, if there's anything you see that would be maybe the reason for that, or if that's more of just like
Mm-hmm.
sort of more of a balancing of that.
Yeah, what I would say probably is that's just kind of you having done some of the work of the Capricorn,
Mm,
like being able to like feel comfortable with this stuff, of like knowing that like you can't repress these emotions, it's not sustainable for you. You've got a pretty harmonious looking chart here. You've got this really nice big fire trine here. Just kind of showing that some of the transformation that you need to do in life happens pretty naturally, uh,
mm,
and kind of just unfolds naturally for you. You also have some nice angles between your moon and Venus here. So Venus is like your relationship patterns and that kind of stuff. And so this is what they call a trine. It's pretty wide, but it's still harmonious. And so
mhm,
I think that just kind of shows that like the way that you enter into relationships is definitely like aligned with how you feel about yourself,
mm,
and what you need, what your emotional needs are. Because really, there's a the shadow side of Capricorn is like over obsession with materialism, status, reputation, and really when it becomes fully embodied and it steps into this is like it's really about like owning your authority and like being willing to like impose yourself on people around you and letting people know what you need and why
mm.
you need it. Um, but yeah, and I think I think that just kind of shows the work that you've done more than anything else, honestly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Uh,
Okay.
so we have your rising sign after that. So, and I will also say this, the moon does not shine on its own, right? It reflects the light.
Mhm.
We have to, we have to actively feed our moon sign. And so this would be considered an invitation to experiment with what does my Capricorn moon need to feel content? Um, and these are usually things like feeling like it has a strong reputation, feeling like people respect it, um, and maybe like just like feeling like you don't need to. I would invite a contemplation in around your emotions with this too, and just kind of see if there is an element of maybe needing to keep things a little bit closer to the vest to feel comfortable, more comfortable maybe, and just kind of see how that feels. Um, because certain parts of our chart are more important than other parts, and that might be something for later in life or even for earlier in life that you already have kind of worked through that. So,
Mhm.
and then we see the rising sign. The rising sign is a lot more complicated than people give it credit for, in my experience. So, you're Leo rising. Um, the, People tend to look at Leo rising as a very harmonious placement. It's almost a coveted, as people say, is like Leo
Mm.
rising. Oh, it's so nice. You have Leo rising, and I don't look at any of this as good or bad, right? There's nothing good
Yeah,
in this chart. It's all just is. And the more that we can get outside of that paradigm, the more work and growth we can experience, right?
totally.
And so Leo rising, the rising sign, like, yeah, often describes early childhood, how we were as children, how people see us, how we enter a room, what people notice about us, and sometimes the masks that we wear, our defense mechanisms, um, are often part of our rising sign expression. Our mental thought patterns also. The first house rules the head. And that's how the entry point into our first house is our rising sign. So we might judge others through the lens of our rising sign most dominantly. So for someone who has a Leo rising, for example, they might be intimidated by people who are fully embodied in their star power because they might feel less adequate, or they might judge other people because they're not willing to step into their own, you know, embodiment in some ways. Leo is this like inner child that plays with its ego, right? A lot of people look at Leo as this egotistical, ego obsessed sign, and that is absolutely one of the shadows that we see with Leo is this like, look at me, the world's about me, how can I do better? Look at Whereas really enlightened Leo plays with its ego, embraces its ego, and knows that it's just one part of who it is, and doesn't identify with people's projections on that ego, right? So Leo likes to be the center of attention. Leo loves to work a room. It's very social. It can really, but this incredibly joyful. It's the lion. This is the king of the jungle. Like this is like the benevolent leader. Leo is a leader. Whereas Aries is this leader, it's a very hesitant leader. Aries is like, oh, I'm out ahead of everybody. Please don't follow me. I don't know where I'm going. Like, and like Leo is like, I will take you there. And it's a very caring sign. And again, like whereas Aries has this sort of like naivety, Leo has this more maturity. about its passions. It's so passionate. Leo doesn't have any time for anything it's not passionate about, quite frankly. It's like unless I can like give myself fully to it and feel my fire burning deeply in this, I don't really care, you know. And that's Leo at its best, is when it's passionate and caring and playful. It's this. It really like is this like beautiful embodiment of the inner child. Um, um, and so yeah, the rising sign gets complicated. It's a little bit more than just this mask that we wear, how other people see us. We actually end up like judging people through the lens of our rising sign and creating these mental defense mechanisms about creating these inferiority and superiority stories around the lens of our rising sign very, very strongly. And so just becoming aware of that is really just something that we can work with our rising sign, because all these signs have shadows, all of them have gifts, and we really have every sign within us. You know, the zodiac is truly just an explanation of life itself. And
Hmm.
so by working with all 12 archetypes, um, we can learn more about ourselves. And if you have any questions, feel free to jump in here if anything comes up at all.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So um, I think when I looked at your chart right away, one thing that really jumped out at me was up here. Your sun is conjunct Chiron. Chiron is, I think, the most fascinating archetype in the zodiac for me.
Hmm. The
Healer,
wounded healer. Yeah.
healer, right? This is, I mean, and what's so cool about Chiron is we didn't discover Chiron until 1977.
Mm.
Um, People say we were given Chiron. It was a gift in 1977 that we needed
Mm. Mm.
to prepare for this next journey, because Chiron um, is actually a planet. Many people think of it as an asteroid or a comet. It is a dwarf planet that's actually bigger than Pluto.
Mm.
So like,
Wow.
it's a really powerful energy, and um, we see the wounded healer archetype. It's the centaur, right? This is the
Hmm.
figure of Chiron. Chiron in ancient Greece was also the archetype of the astrologer, the healer. Uh,
Wow.
the word chiropractor comes from Chiron.
Mm.
Um, so there's, I mean, so much depth to the energy of Chiron. And having yours conjunct your sun, you know, the sun is like kind of how we identify ourselves, how we see ourselves. And so that your journey, your embodiment, the way you shine is supported by your healing journey. And in fact, all this happening in the 10th house shows a very strong, the 10th house is all about career. And so, like, you are here to be a healer. You are here to identify as a healer. You are here to help people step into shining as brightly as they possibly can through their healing. And again, really grounding themselves in it, right? You know, Taurus is the bull. Taurus is not the charging bull. Taurus is that bull that is stationary. You know, is just it doesn't it the world just kind of happens around it, and Taurus is very grounded in itself. And so this is feeling comfortable grounding into yourself and really bringing people through the journey, healing journey of self worth
Mm.
first and
Hmm.
foremost. These are the people who are like needing their own, you know, help to feel like they are worthy of their dreams, to feel like they're worthy of the career they want, and to have their needs met and to be cared for um, in a big way. If you're looking for a direction for your healing practice, I'm like right here, like this is it, like helping people discover their self worth. Um,
Sorry, just I'm curious why you're saying self-worth specifically. Is that tied into because of the
Taurus.
just that's what you're saying that's what Taurus is about?
Yes, those are the wounds of Taurus. It have to
Mm.
have self worth, and because we have Chiron here, like the wound
Oh, got it.
that really brings up this like healing journey around self worth. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
and also becoming like disentangled from the material realms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Much image for Taurus, right? It can be
Mm-hmm.
shallow and superficial at times, and so and that's why we see the opposite of Taurus as Scorpio, right? So whereas like Taurus represents like what we see on the surface of things, Scorpio is like what lies at the very core, the shadows way within there. Um,
Mm.
and one of the things we see with our sun sign too is, and this is kind of borrowing from a human design concept here, but human design uses the Earth as well, and the Earth is just always opposite your sun. Makes sense, right? The sun would just
Mm-hmm.
be the opposite of the earth. And so your sun never happens in a vacuum. Your sun is your sun earth pairing. And the earth represents how we evolve. And so Taurus evolves through Scorpio energy. This like
Mm.
magic alchemical cauldron that Scorpio brings into this, embracing the darkness, embracing what lies beneath, and really owning our fears. Scorpio feels deep, deep fear of
Mm.
emotional depth. And so, by confronting that, by stepping into it, embracing emotional depth, Taurus really steps into its own evolutionary journey.
Mm. Wow, this is amazing. This is so cool. I love it so
Yes.
much.
I mean, and then, I think one thing that's really interesting to where you are right now in your life is you're basically exactly at your Uranus opposition. So your Uranus down here is at 14 degrees Scorpio. Uranus, right this very second, is at about 12 degrees Taurus. So you're stepping into, so Uranus takes about 84 years to transit the zodiac. And so this Uranus opposition is one of the biggest moments of one of the biggest transition points, truly, of someone's life, the Uranus opposition. Uranus is all about sort of our esoteric power. Um, and if we think about the progression of our planets, I'm jumping around here, but this is just kind of, I'm just kind of flowing now. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
so what happens is we have, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, after Mars, Jupiter, then Saturn. In between Saturn and Uranus is where Chiron lies. And so when we see this progression come through, right, Jupiter expands us. We begin to, you know, become more aware of the possibilities of the world around us. And then Saturn says, okay, now do it again. Now structure it. Now make a system out of it. Make it sustainable, right? And then Chiron is this bridge from the form, Saturn, to the esoteric, Uranus. And so our healing journey, stepping into our wounds, embracing our shadows, is what actually brings us to our superpowers, which is Uranus. Uranus is really about what we can be channeling, how we inspire ourselves, how we inspire other people, um, our eccentricities, our uniqueness is very much tied in with Uranus. And
Mm.
so, Uranus and Scorpio for you, I mean, there's a big kind of placement on like alchemy, like what are the combining forces with things, bringing putting things into the cauldron and like seeing what happens when we experiment with this stuff, and like not being afraid to experience some darkness with that. So this is a really like big moment in your life. at 42, because of this Uranus opposition, and it creates this tension. Oppositions create tension in our charts, and so it really like enlivens everything. It brings so much energy with it when we have this tension, because we have this restlessness to us where we're like, this is not feeling right. I can't get the combination just right for this, and so it fuels us to continue to push. These are incredible gifts when we have these oppositions, and so it's a really beautiful thing. And I think, as you know, this is happening with you. You know, Uranus is basically right on your sun. So this is just a really intense time in your life, like really intense transformation coming through right now. And I would expect that, when Uranus is involved, we have no idea what to expect. Uranus is totally unpredictable energy. It
Mm,
it is the lightning bolts of inspiration that strike when you least expect it. When you've totally given up, when you have thrown yourself at the mercy of the universe, and finally those aha moments come. That's Uranus at play. This is when inspiration strikes you and you end up staying up all night writing. This is like when.
yeah, and that's been happening.
Of course it has. I love it.
And that's like not my norm right now. So that's right on. That's
Oh,
hilarious.
that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, yes. And I mean, there's a lot happening with this Uranus and Taurus action right now. So, because we have Saturn and Aquarius, it's creating a lot of like just big dynamic energy with this like Uranus and Taurus, which is like Uranus is like getting us unstuck, right? It's this like shocking energy that like brings us out of our status quo, and so
Mm,
we're being like really there's shocking things happening in our lives right now where we're just being surprised constantly, and that's that surprise, that awe is all Uranus like stepping into its own uniqueness, and Uranus knows that our power is our uniqueness. It's how we are different from other people. It's our authenticity is really what our greatest gift is.
mm,
So,
mhm.
yeah, this Uranus opposition, I'm excited for you to be in this time in your life, quite frankly. This is a
Yeah.
really big, like couple months here for you, honestly. Um,
How
'Cause
long does that last? That opposition?
I would say this is an influence that you should be working with for about a year.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it will be, like, go ahead here, a month. Yeah, so it comes direct right around the 4th of July.
Okay.
Um, and then retrogrades.
Mm,
So, I mean, I'd say, yeah, you're working with this energy, the next year.
okay.
Really. Like, yeah.
So
Uh,
expect the unexpected.
Expect the unexpected is
Love
really
it.
the biggest thing you can do this time. Yeah. Because there's, yeah, Uranus, it's unpredictable energy. Unpredictable
Hmm.
energy, and really powerful energy. Like, it's those like just aha inspirational moments that come through.
Mm, love it.
Yeah, are just so precious.
Hmm.
So I guess, do you have any questions that came up around that? Anything worth exploring around that, you think?
No, not at this time. I'm glad that you're recording it. So
Yeah.
just I'll want to probably
Oh yeah.
listen to it back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And that's why I do this, so people can like, be engaged and like, able to like kind of yeah, be in the process.
yeah.
So, a couple other, you mentioned relationship stuff.
Hmm.
And I would, you said he's in Aries. I would, in order to like fully analyze the relationship, I would need like the whole chart, to like
Sure.
name on top of each other. But,
Yeah.
what I would say is a couple things here. So, where we see the opposite of our rising sign. So our rising sign is always our first house. Opposite our rising sign is the seventh house. Seventh house is the house of relationships.
Okay.
So Aquarius rules your seventh house. So you would find most balancing to you partnerships of an Aquarian nature. So that means Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. So kind of Aquarius is that contrarian energy, right? Aquarius is very different. Aquarius is the people who, if you tell everybody to go to one side of the room, Aquarius goes to the other side of the room. You know, Aquarius will do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. Aquarius pushes us forward. It's very triggering energy sometimes because we don't necessarily want to be pushed in the way that Aquarius pushes us. Aquarius is very based in community. Um, it's chaotic energy. So Aquarius can easily get lost in its own chaos, and that needs community. So when I see Aquarius in the seventh house here, what that shows is that community is a very balancing thing for you, and
Hmm.
having a strong community, having acceptance in a community, having a community where you can show up as your authentic self is incredibly balancing for you, and also like in a community that pushes you, and a partner who is a little different. They're just a little bit unique. They don't have to have Aquarius in their chart. They don't have to, but carrying some of these Aquarian qualities, because
Mm.
what's interesting is this, these all happen in polarities, right? So Leo is this like, we play with our individuality, our ego is it's all about the individual self, whereas Aquarius is all about community, and so,
Mm.
like how this kind of polarity manifests here. And so Aquarius has this deep love for humanity, but sometimes forgets how to love the person in front of it. And so these are kind of emotionally detached people in many ways.
Aquarius.
Yes, Aquarius can
Oh,
be
okay.
very emotionally cold at times. And so these are, I mean, some of the qualities that can help Leo to kind of like not be so self obsessed.
Hmm.
um,
Am I at all, I can kind of see on the chart, is the moon at all close to Aquarius? Because in some other readings, I think someone said I was close to the cusp of Aquarius, but on this, it doesn't really look like it.
I mean, do I have your time right here? So April 28th, 1978, 11:16 a.m.
Yeah.
Austin,
Yep.
Minnesota. Yeah, I just want to make sure that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so
So
it's
it's not.
it's about 8 degrees away from Aquarius here.
Okay.
So I would
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily call that super close. If you're doing like Vedic astrology,
Yeah.
it might be closer
Okay.
because
Okay.
Vedic astrology is a little bit different, and
Okay.
they they do their measurements a little bit differently. So in Vedic
Okay.
astrology, you might be closer to an Aquarius moon. Uh,
Okay. That maybe that's what it was.
yeah, it very well could be there. And it's interesting here as well because um, Juno, which is right here, Juno is one of the asteroids, and Juno represents like our ideal mate. It's like our like what we want to marry. It could that doesn't have to be a person necessarily, right? But like it's this idea of, and yours is an Aquarius here. Um, and then so it would show that those kind of qualities like that off the beaten path kind of different. Aquarius is very rebellious, um, and so those are some of the qualities that you like long to align yourself with.
Mm.
Um, and so I think it would be cool to explore your nodes a little bit here again, because you mentioned having a pretty good understanding of those. And I think we could
Okay.
really kind of elevate that a little bit here as well today. Um,
Awesome.
so the nodes are incredibly powerful. The nodes are so powerful to work with. Every planet has nodes, but the ones that we work with most, and I mostly practice what they call evolutionary astrology. And evolutionary astrology really embraces the nodes, embraces Pluto, and some of the other asteroids, Chiron especially. And it's not an asteroid, but with the nodes of the moon, which is what we're working with here, is the lunar nodes. Um, Everything you talked about is absolutely true. The south node represents our comfort zone, right? Where we are just very comfortable. And south node in Aries is like very comfortable being independent, not answering to anybody but itself, being impulsive, following those impulses, acting on those impulses. And it can, just get stuck there. The north node is, I like to think of these are like the universal forces at play here. So the south node is like our karma, which is like what we're here to heal from in many ways, and sort of what we took on, in our bodies when we came into this lifetime. The north node represents our dharma, what aligns us with our path, transformation and growth happens through our north node. And as such, as people who would probably identify in some realm as spiritual seekers, this can become a compulsion in many ways too. The North Node. The North Node in Libra wants to collaborate, wants to work with people, and grows through partnerships. Libra represents the scales of justice, right? And it's all about mediation, right? And balancing. Libra has this amazing ability just to bring balance wherever it goes, without even trying. Really, it's not even about like trying. It's just like, oh, like you have just kind of like a balancing quality. Like I notice my friends who have Libra rising, they have this like impeccable timing, and they just always kind of like bring what needs to happen in those moments. These are the peacemakers, right? They're very comfortable keeping the peace, but that's your north node, so it's not necessarily that comfortable for you to keep the peace. You like to kind of like stir the pot a little bit sometimes,
Yeah.
and that's good. So just knowing that like this is the balance that you came here to work with in this lifetime.
Mm.
Um, and if you lean too far in either direction, it's going to lead you astray. So if you're leaning too far towards your Aries South node, you're going to feel stuck, stagnant in many ways. If you're leaning too far towards your North node in Libra, you might lose your sense of groundedness. You might just be constantly growing and transforming. And that can become this compulsion, especially North Node and Libra is like, okay, who am I going to work with next? What are these people like? Who am I bringing in here? Who are the people that can help me with this? And so it's about striking that balance because you need both of these energies in order to really manage them correctly. You're supposed to embrace your past life karmas. You're not supposed to shut it away, repress it.
Mm-hmm.
And yet this north node is like what you don't have experience with. It's unfamiliar territory.
Mm.
But you can't constantly be doing that. It's not sustainable.
Right.
What's interesting here as well is you're working with the third and ninth house polarity. So the north node in the third house. The third house is all about early education. Can be childhood education, siblings. It's the teacher. It's about a dialogue. And so there's like a really strong like you want to like show people how to like begin to take the first steps in their life, right? Like, okay, what are these first steps that I can do towards transformation here? Like, what do I just need to know what step one is, and like, what is the guide, that I can begin to follow? These are Because again, the South Node here is in the ninth house. Ninth house is like like spirituality and like higher education, spiritual initiation, spiritual education comes through this. They're not having a South Node in the ninth house, especially in Aries. I mean, this is the kind of person who like probably has a past life as like a monk somewhere, like who was like, I mean, like independently spiritually enlightened and like kind of teaching themselves how to be spiritual, doing their own thing, not needing a teacher to do it, being their own teacher. The the south node in the ninth house is like the archetype of like someone who like lived on like the in like the peak of the Himalayas almost, you know what I mean, just kind of like isolated from society in some ways. So you have a very you're comfortable isolating yourself as well.
Totally. I
Yeah.
dream about that all the time. I want to be away from people, but I love them.
Well, that's just it because you need people. The third house is so social, you know, you
Yeah.
need people, and like so you need to like kind of like step into that in many ways. So like it's a this is the balance. This is like this is what the nodes are powerful that way because we're here to merge these polarities and like work with them together and combine them because they're really
Mm,
just two sides of the same coin.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, and then I mean 1, 2, 3 right now. That's nice. Good time. Any questions around that? Like I guess anything that came up for you with that?
No, just that I love the way that you're elevating all of these aspects that I've somewhat familiar with, but haven't ever really had a chance to go in depth with. So it's just really fascinating to me. Um, which brings me to, isn't there something with, and for some reason I'm not reading the chart as well, but isn't my Gemini in Venus?
Yeah.
Is there something with that with what I guess I'm curious about that
Yeah, yeah.
for some reason.
Let's talk about Venus and Gemini. I have Venus and Gemini too, so I love Venus and Gemini. Uh,
Yeah,
Venus is often we think about Venus as like our ruling our love and relationships.
right.
Venus also rules money coming in.
Oh, really?
Yes, money coming in. Value again because it's the ruler of Taurus. We see self worth
Hmm,
with Venus. Venus also represents, because it's also the ruler of Libra, a sense of justice and fairness. Uh,
right.
and so it's a really complicated planet. I think if you boil down Venus to one word, one frequency, it's a connection. Venus is how we connect, and those
Hmm,
other things are just like basically offshoots of connection, justice and love and money and whatever. So Venus and Gemini connects through words, connects through
hmm,
communication.
yeah,
Intellectualism can be very, very strongly suited here. Really, is a skilled writer, speaking, and putting things simply is a skill for Gemini, very much so. If you think about, Gemini is the ruler of that third house. So this is that early education, like the embodied Gemini is able to recognize the intelligence of anything in front of it. If you think about like those teachers you had in school, and like there'd be a kid who would just ask this rambling question that didn't make any sense, right? And everyone's like, "What is this kid talking about?" And all of a sudden, the teacher sees the intelligence in the question, rephrases it back in a way that you're like, oh, that was actually a really like big thing that kid just said. This is like that finding the intelligence. Gemini is all about a dialogue, hearing both sides of things. Being open to being moved through debate. Being open to having your mind changed, right? Letting go of belief in many ways. Um,
hmm,
is a really important thing for Gemini. Venus and Gemini romantically. um, is attracted to a lot of different things. It can be attracted to different types of people. You know,
Yeah.
the kind of people who want to like have all these different romantic experiences. They want to date this kind of person and that kind of person. They want to go on a romantic getaway here, and they want to go on this dark journey of the soul with this person, and they want to like have these romantic experiences. It can be sometimes challenging for Venus and Gemini to settle down.
Mm.
Um, and so Venus and Gemini also does well in relationships that are kind of constantly changing and evolving in that way. It can get bored. It's a very creative placement. Gemini loves to be creative. It's very airy, right? It's like up in its head, kind of. The when we think of Gemini, the symbol is the twins, and a lot of people think of that as like there's like two-faced people, right? Like, oh, you got to watch out for the other side, right? Because there's two sides of this Gemini. And what we see is that the twins represent the head and the heart. And so um, you connect by connecting the head and the heart.
Mm.
And like letting yourself play, not getting too far into either. And very, very playful energy, Gemini. Gemini is such a beautiful. We're in Gemini season right now. You know, it's a
Hmm.
beautiful time. We're social. It's like that beginning summer. You know what I mean? Where everyone's just like coming back out into the world again and like dusting off the cobwebs and just getting out
Yeah,
there, and like it loves to be around people. So I love a Venus and Gemini. You'll find that you probably attract a lot of Geminis into your life.
totally.
Yeah, that's your
All
Venus.
the time.
Yeah, you connect people with like you connect with that energy so strongly. You're just able to like instantly like speak people's languages, you know,
Hmm.
and you understand them. So like you just like see Gemini energy so clearly for what it is, and you just know it.
Hmm.
So I love that placement for you. I think that's a beautiful thing. Um, and then really, I think the next one that's interesting here is your Mars. Your Mars is in Leo. Do you ever? What is it? Does that mean anything for you?
Um, Mars and Leo. Because Mars isn't Mars the ruling planet for Aries, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Like the warrior or
Yeah.
the like,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I'm super fiery and
Yep. See that.
yeah, like I don't know, I'm like my brain is kind of spinning in a good way from all of these aspects of myself that we're talking about, but um nothing's really coming to mind other than just my kind of fiery assertiveness,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
basically.
Beautiful. Well, so
Yeah.
think about it. Venus also represents like the feminine pole, and so Mars is like the masculine. Um,
Mm,
and so Mars represents our sexual energy, our work, how we are assertive, and it's Mars is our penetrative force
mm.
on the world. Um,
So between like be that for me and being a manifester, I think that I'm seeing why I said to you in the beginning, my work is to like be gentle and like less, work with those energies, but also I do feel very masculine outwardly in my communication and approach, but I'm very feminine internally.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's so funny. I didn't realize that about Mars for some reason.
Mars is this really interesting energy, and so like you're here to kind of like work through like your own like I mean again Leo, right? This like star quality, this like just like stepping into that, embracing, what only you can offer. like your
Mm,
individuality in that, and like and playing with your ego a little bit and being very very playful, right? Leo is so playful. It's fiery, but it's playful. Um,
mm,
that's a really important piece here for you. Also, the what's interesting here is that Mars is in your 12th house. So, although Leo is your rising sign, because it's just below, if you see your ascendant here is at 8 degrees, your Mars is at 7 degrees. So, the 12th house is like our subconscious realms, unconscious realms, sometimes things
mm,
that we feel shame about come through the 12th house. And so, like, it might feel weird for you, unnatural even, to like step into this like star quality of Leo and like something that like you feel like, what does this mean for my ego? Am I ego obsessed? Am I gonna be like whatever? Like there's these like subconscious fears that come around with this Mars in the 12th house here, and maybe even like repressed sexuality, some past life karma having to do with being too assertive, right? Being too masculine, being whatever it might be. Um, some wounding around that potentially. Um, that I think would be because like ultimately, like you said, like you're a manifester, like you're here to like impose yourself on this world, and but to do so from a feminine place,
mm-hmm.
from that place of intuition, from that place of understanding. And um, I think that's what you see here is like there's almost like a repression of like, I don't want to, what are they going to think of me? What are they going to do if I'm too assertive? What if I'm too passionate? What does it mean for me to want to be a leader? You know,
Mm,
um, is that um, presumptuous of me, right? Do I think I'm better than other people? These are the kind of things that Leo in the 12th house placements uh, can bring up for us, especially around our work. This is also has to do with our virtue. Mars is like really like what we can like uh, how we are like embodied in our own power that way. So, uh, and then yeah, this is like a passionate, fiery sexual nature. This is someone who's like just loves to get lost in passion and just really, really absorb themselves in the person in front of them and give themselves fully and love the person in front of them. Leo is capable of such powerful adoration and receiving such powerful adoration. And it can really become almost obsessed with the people in front of them because of that.
are you talking about Leo or Mars?
Leo, but then like Mars,
Okay,
yeah, yeah,
got it. Okay.
yeah. And so these are just some potential subconscious things that might be playing out here with Mars and Leo because the 12th house represents our unconscious realms,
Yeah.
what we dissolve into, kind of like what lies beneath, very many ways. Also can
Mm,
become addictive. So like the 12th house can show where we might have addictive patterns. Um, and so some of these Martian qualities, let's call them sexuality, work. This is the kind of person that can become very, very, can become a workaholic very easily, very easily.
mm,
And um, yeah, it can, I mean, like a sexual addiction could be a thing here as well. So just things to kind of be aware of. Um,
mm-hmm.
hmm. And then we might as well cover Mercury. Do you have any questions on any of that stuff?
No, I'm just getting my mind blown.
So yeah, this is why I think it'd be best not to dive into human design today too, because I think
Totally.
that'll be too much to go into human design today. Uh,
Yeah.
but let's talk Mercury. Mercury in Aries. You speak. That's Mercury has everything to do with our communication style. You know,
Oh, crap.
you speak very directly to people. You
Yes.
say what's on your mind.
Yeah.
There's not much of a filter.
I feel like I should have been born in New York, not Minnesota.
Oh, it was cruel for you to be born in Minnesota. Oh man, yeah, that's a real thing. That's a very real.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, and especially right because like Mars rules Aries, and so you're like in this place where you're almost like being direct and with people is like shameful, right? So this 12th house Mars gets like suppressed in many ways because you're in this place where it's not appreciated, where people like are like don't
Totally.
be so direct with people, and you're like, yo, I have to be, you
I
know?
actually got at my last job, they told me I was too direct.
Yeah.
And that's no one's ever said that like at a job before because usually I have a way to like filter or soften, but I was literally the director at my job. So I'm like, you don't want me to be direct? Should I be passive aggressive? I don't know how to be.
Oh man.
Anyway,
Yeah, oh boy, we got a lot to talk about for human design. That's bringing a lot up for me, but that'll be fun to get that into that next time. Um,
totally.
but yeah, so Mercury in Aries is very doesn't have that much of a filter. Can sometimes be a little emotionally insensitive when it communicates, just because it's just not. It's not. It just doesn't think about that. It just doesn't necessarily always like think about ways that it can soften its communication. It's just like, oh, this is on my mind, so I want to say it. Oh, I guess I could have said that a little bit differently, huh? I could have said that in a way that was a little bit more conscious of how it was being received. Um,
Mm,
but that's not how Aries operates. It's just not. And you see here, you got this directly opposite your Pluto. So just showing that this brings about intense transformation. When you do speak your mind and maybe it's not received well, it leads to transformation. It leads to a big change in your life.
like for me or for other people or both potentially?
Yeah, for you and everybody else.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And what we see here, this opposition here between your Mercury and Pluto, which is a big angle. This is like just like really creating
Yeah.
tension. And then it all gets funneled, these two red lines here, right to your moon sign in Capricorn. You develop this reputation for kind of triggering transformation in people through
Hmm.
communicate. And actually, it creates it can create some pressure on this moon in Capricorn because you want to be seen a certain way. And yeah, we could explore this a lot more. I don't. It's a really big angle. It's just not a lot's coming from it right now. But this is interesting to see how that comes up here because what we see when we like it creates this kind of pressure towards like they call the focal point. And so it's actually really interesting because what they see is that like you need to embrace the opposite. So this big kind of right triangle here made of red, what
Yeah.
you need to do to take pressure off of your moon is to embrace Cancerian qualities. So, like that work that you've done to be emotionally vulnerable, to be able to be in that place, has eased so much of this pressure in your life.
Mm,
You weren't able to do that. It was creating a lot. It could have created a lot of pressure, I guess. These all just kind of show potentials, right? These don't.
right.
Not all these stories have to play out in our lives, which is fortunate. We can begin to work with them when they show early signs. But yeah, you have this, I mean, magnetic quality to you. This big fire trine here, this is like past the really, really powerful past life karma coming through here. Like you have this ability to transform, to create, and really, this is about like initiating people into new realms. You know,
Mm,
it's about taking those first steps with people, discovering their passions. You know what I mean? Like, what are those first steps they can do to find their passions in life? Uh,
mm,
and how can they shine brightest? Like that's a big strength of yours, is shining. Um, and so um, you like really, that's such a powerful tool to be using as a coach, right? Is how can you know recognize when people have like fears of shining, you know,
Hmm.
like see that in people and be like, yo, there's like something in you that is like afraid of shining brightly right now, you know, and like
Hmm.
um, just seeing people in that space can be so powerful.
Right.
Yeah. Um, so I think that's probably a good place to leave it today.
Okay.
Um, I think yeah, there's you have a very dynamic chart. There's a lot of powerful aspects here, big transformations I can see, and it's very, very, very clear this is a powerful time in your life. Uh,
Hmm.
I would say one thing: we have an eclipse coming up on Thursday that will happen in your 11th house. 11th house has everything to do with community, society, friends, um, as well as like the vision for our own human evolution. So this is a solar eclipse, so a really powerful new beginning in this realm. And so just kind of be taking note of the people that are around you at this time,
Mm.
and the people who support you, the people who make you feel authentic,
Mm.
accept your authenticity, um, because these are the people where you're really planting seeds with right now.
Mm.
This is a time for planting seeds. These eclipses are like the most powerful times of the year. Like it's not even close. Like the very air around us is more fertile for our intentions right now.
Mm.
Planting
Yeah.
seeds in every interaction, bringing that intention with you, will carry you so far in the next 6 months.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. It's a great reminder
Yeah.
about eclipse energy.
Oh yeah, it's powerful. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think I'll probably leave it there today. Send
Awesome.
the recording. Probably later today if I can get around to it. I'll send you just a private YouTube link is how I send it out. So
That's perfect.
it's like
Yeah.
do it. And yeah, I'm excited to get my coaching session with you on, is that Friday we're doing that?
Friday. Yep. I
That.
don't have my phone by me, but I have you down on Friday.
Worried about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Friday. So I'm excited for that. And like, yeah, it might be fun just do like kind of three each here. I think would be a really good way for us to get to understand each other's process in this. Does that make sense?
I love it. I totally love it. That's great. And I think because I mean, I already want more sessions from you, I can tell. And then also to like have a little bit of continuity with the coaching would be good and not just do one. I love that.
I think that makes the most sense. So,
Okay.
well, let's enjoy the rest of your day here. Get ready for your next session, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You're so rad.
Oh, always that.
Thank you for doing it. Thank you for doing this work. I feel so like, yeah, just thank you so much.
I really appreciate that. That means a lot.
Okay. Take care.
Here.
Have a
Bye.
good day. Bye.
Bye.